Welcome, everyone. Welcome to those who are new. Welcome to Medicine Buddha. This is indeed Medicine Buddha, our Monday night discography with Lama Rod, whichever you want to do. I think it's nice to listen to music. The recording, this is a new singer, artist that I just came across, um, whose name is Mandisi Diantius, which I think is his name. I think he's Nigerian. Um, and whose music was just very lovely. I love a good, string and guitar and bass accompaniment and just soulful singing. Um, so I wanted to start out tonight. Of course, that's the description from the artist as well that I posted in the box. And that's the name of the song. And Denisi in Layla, which I think fits really well with our work with Medicine Buddha. Um, and yeah, it's good to see everyone. I've been away, um, just doing some traveling, so I'm glad to be back. I'm kind of in and out for the next couple of months. So I'm starting the book tour again next week. I suspended it for the winter, um, but we're back on. And I will be in Boston in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from tomorrow, I'll be at Harvard, at the Divinity School, where I am very much celebrated for my contributions into American religious life. But I'll be there, and you can go somewhere and find that information if you're in the Boston area. It's going to be an evening event on campus. Um, yeah, this feels like so much has happened and so much is happening. Thank you for those who are joining me in the Matara practice. Um, I'll be offering some kind of connecting practices to bridge Matara and Medicine Buddha. But if you have your carnelian stone with you, if you're in the course, very much feel free to use this stone when working with our practice as well. Also, Free Radicals is on Thursday as well. Of course, Free Radicals is our 1 hour gathering online, coming from more of a, I would say, radical mindfulness kind of framework. So that's a really nice, very great introductory place for people to start in terms of meditation. So that's happening Thursday, and you have everything else being announced, right? I've been, just being away and traveling and kind of getting offline a little bit, and just spending time on land. I've been really thinking about, you know, the work that we're called to do, the work of um, really showing up to the struggle, showing up to the suffering, right? And a teaching that kind of dropped in for me when I was away was how we'll never get to the truth if we can't get to the suffering, right? If you can't get to the truth if you can't get to the suffering. A lot of people are lying to themselves because they actually don't have the capacity to tend to the suffering. Now, I'm not saying that you have to really be in the suffering and really be really doing it. That's not what I'm saying. That's another thing. That's what we're trying to do tonight, is to wrestle and tend to the suffering. But what I'm saying specifically, if you can't even name the pain, right? You may not be able to feel it, right? You may not be able to process it, but if you're not even attempting to name it, to acknowledge it, then you're very far away from the truth of things. The truth of things for yourself, the truth of things for our collective as well, you know. And it's tough. Like this is definitely rough waters, right? Like this is the storm. And it's supposed to be hard. You know, like none of this is supposed to be easy. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it. You know, if dealing and processing suffering and trauma was like scrolling TikTok, then we would be living in, well, in Shambhala, actually. This would definitely be Shambhala, where everyone is doing the work. Everyone's getting enlightened together, but that's not the case. A handful of us are really doing the lifting for the collective right now. And of course, that lifting means that for us, we do this intense work of staying with the suffering, you know, um, processing the suffering, calling on the help, you know, from the practices that we've been given, as well. Um, the broken heart, our broken hearts are full of so much wisdom, you know, it's full of like so much teaching. If we can stick along, if we can stick with it long enough for it to teach us, you know, if we can stick with it long enough for us to teach us. Sorry, I keep going in and out of focus here, right? And this is, this is why we work with deity practice like this. It's not necessarily, oh, we're working with deities to get enlightened, but we're working with deities in order to develop and to have this experience of the nature of our suffering. And when we get that, then we start experiencing freedom, right? When we get to that point, we have this capacity to disrupt the ways in which we weaponize the avoidance of our own brokenheartedness against others, right? And force people to experience the suffering that we're avoiding for ourselves. Um, it's lonely work, as I talk about, particularly in the New Saints. It's lonely work, but it's necessary work as well. It's not necessarily comfortable work, but it's imperative work, you know. Um, and on top of that, and I deeply believe this, like if you're called to practice right now in this intensity, then in many ways, I believe you chose to be in this moment, right? If you're practicing and riding these waves, you chose to be here to do this work in this moment. This is not random. We're not randomly here together on the Zoom, right? You didn't randomly, for some of you, come across a Medicine Buddha post and be like, and was like, oh, I wonder what this is. You know what this is. You may not remember, particularly in this life, what this is, but you know intuitively what this work is, and you were called back into it, right? So this is nothing's random. We don't, in Buddhism, we don't really do random either, right? Um, I just recently saw, and I'm going to get into practice. I just recently saw the latest Hunger Games movie with Viola Davis. She's really good. I'll tell you. I mean, they really like messed up her skincare in that character in that movie. I was like, this poor child. How dare they have this professional, although like sociopathic Black woman with that kind of skincare routine. This is, but the point that I'm trying to make, she has this line in it, which she just delivers so brilliantly. And I forget exactly the wording, but it's something like, there's what did she say? There's no, so something about if there's no meaning to this, there's no meaning to nothing. So they're talking about, this thing that she created. And she was like, if there's no meaning here, there's no meaning everywhere. And like that line really struck me because it really kind of reflected on this Buddhist idea that like, no, that everything is significant, right? Even in a Mahamudra sense, even if it's just phenomenal arising, it's still arising from emptiness. And that arising is still pointing us back to the ultimate meaning of emptiness space, right? So everything has this meaning, and the meaning is pointing us to the essential nature of everything. Um, so that's been, again, like everything is everything, right? As Lauryn Hill's saying, everything is everything. Everything's connected. I guess, part of the point I'm trying to get to is that what we do in our practice together in these sessions has such an incredible impact in the world, right? Has an impact on the things that we're struggling with, the struggles, the solidarities that we're engaged in terms of like the liberation of people, right? Like what we do, the practice is linked to the liberation of all beings, right? So you are doing something, even in this practice of just chanting and visualizing, whatever we get into in the practice, there's meaning here, right? If there's no meaning here, there's no meaning anywhere, right? But this does have meaning, right? This does have impact, right? This does tend to the chaos of the world. This does tend to the violence and the harm and the trauma that so many of us are experiencing and trying to get free from. This has meaning, right? Um, so we take this seriously. I take this seriously, and I invite you into the sacred practice, especially if you're new. I invite you into this practice, this communion. This is communion. This is collective liberation work. And we bring our brokenheartedness, we bring our numbness, we bring our despair, we bring our hopelessness, and we lay it at the feet of the deity. We lay it at the feet of Tara. We lay it at the feet of Medicine Buddha and Shinrezig and everyone, right? Like we lay the things that we're struggling with to the deity as an offering. Even our like exhaustion or weariness, we offer this to the deity, and with the support of the deity helps us to understand the wisdom, to really begin to embody the wisdom of the suffering that we struggle with. There's meaning in the suffering. We just don't suffer just to suffer. Like the suffering is always showing us how to get free and how to get others free if we can just show up to it, right? If we can just let our hearts break, there's freedom in that. You know? And people say, well, I'll be consumed by the heartbreak. How can the wave overwhelm the ocean, right? And we have to start reorienting back towards that perspective. That view is that, like, how can something expressed from my most pure nature overwhelm me? Even a tsunami doesn't overwhelm the ocean, right? And it does, sometimes what we feel does feel like a tsunami just tearing through us. But the essence of that tsunami is water, is the ocean itself, right? If we can just remember that, even in our rage, if we can just remember that even this rage is an expression of the awakened quality of my mind, right? This anger is my awakened mind, right? We can just come back to that teaching when we get trapped or when we feel like hooked, right? When we get hooked. And that's an old teaching from Pema Chodron, that hooking, you know, you bite the hook, you get hooked, right? Like when you get hooked, you remember there's no hook to begin with. So we have lots to do tonight, as always, with our practice. I want to make sure there's space for questions too. So I know I haven't been here for a bit. So if there are questions, I'll try to get to as many as possible as well. We're getting close to spring in this hemisphere. you know, I realize that some of you are probably not in this hemisphere. I think we still have people coming in from Australia. Um, so when I feel the shifting of seasons, my practice always changes, you know. And so that may work itself into the practice as we prepare in this hemisphere to kind of start transitioning into spring, and the meanings of spring across different traditions, which we will definitely be exploring in the Matara course as well, um, to this month. Okay. So yeah, let's begin. All right, let's begin. Um, I suspect tonight will be a very gentle practice, but isn't it always gentle? Is it me? I think it's always gentle. But wait till we start doing Mahakala practice, which will probably happen later this year. It's not so gentle, you know. But also, another thing that dropped in for me while I was away was protection as well. So I know we've done a little bit of protection work, but I want to make that a little more obvious in the practice each session, because we do need a lot of protection right now. And any deity practice can be used as a protection practice as well. Okay. So always, we're just allowing our bodies to come into a position that feels appropriate for us. And as we begin, also make sure you get your prayer requests posted before we get deep into practice. It's hard to jump out of practice and write down a prayer request. So go ahead as we start. Go ahead and post that on the doc. And for those of you who are new, these are the prayer requests will be offered out in the middle of practice. There'll be a session that I begin to offer the prayer. I'll read those aloud. Um, so all the instructions and everything is on the Google Doc, so I won't go through that right now. All right. And so continuing with reflecting on your motivation for practice, our intention for practice, which is to get free, to get free from the causes and conditions of suffering, and to help others get free from the causes and conditions of suffering, and to remember our innate awakened nature, our Buddhahood. And when those intentions have been set, returning your attention or shifting your attention down to the seat, noticing the weight of the body and the seat meeting, and how the seat rises to hold you. And really let the seat hold you, right? Surrender to the seat. And I always talk about this. This is important because many of us are struggling to feel held and taken care of. Some of us feel as if there's nothing or no one we can take refuge in, or nothing that we can trust right now. So let's start with trusting the seat to hold us, right? And allowing the seat to care for you. Let the seat care for you. And so when you're ready, we're going to transition back into this kind of what I call the Uma breath. And the Uma, of course, is the central channel that runs parallel to the spine. And the central channel is a part of the subtle energy body of nadis and channels and energy and chakras and all of that. But shifting your attention to your tailbone or the root of your spine. And as you inhale into the root of your spine, you're imagining that you're inhaling up the central channel or up the spine, if that feels really grounding for you. But inhaling up the spine through the nose, so breathing through the nose up the spine, and then pausing at the top, and then exhaling through the mouth back down to the base of the spine. And just continuing to do that. But as you do that, really slowing the breath down, taking your time, right? And if this breath practice is to just regulating, drop out of it, come back to something that feels more regulating and grounding for you. But if you are working with the breath, it's really slowing the breath down, right? Just taking your time, inhaling up the spine, up the central channel, to the top of the head, and then gently releasing out of the mouth, back down. And one of the things that we're doing in this practice is moving energy that's trying to get somewhere, right? There's energy that's trying to lift. So as we inhale up the spine, we're lifting energy up and out of the chakra or the crown of the head. And then as we exhale out of the mouth, down the central channel on the spine, we're allowing energies that want to ground close to the earth to ground, to settle. So just noticing how that's working for you, the energies that are trying to lift and the energies that are trying to ground. And if you're working with a stone right now, I would really suggest a grounding stone, And so in general, any kind of dark stone is generally going to be helpful in grounding. That doesn't always apply across the board, but that tends to work a little bit for me. And of course, if you're in Matara, if you have your carnelian stone, you can go ahead and just kind of hold that and allow that to kind of start helping you to move energy as well. But some of the more powerful grounding stones that I work with are jet. Um, Even like stormy or dark um, kind of crystals. So if you have an issue with like grounding in your life, get a piece of jet. And jet is really quite available in a lot of like places that sell stones. You know. And jet is just petrified wood, so it's very light and workable, but very powerful and grounding. I continue with the breath. And so for some of you, as you're continuing with the breath, there are just energies that are being awakened or uncovered. And so when you notice that, when you begin to feel, particularly some of these emotional energies, just allowing the breath to move those energies up and down, right? And don't really think about it either, right? Just naturally allow the breath as we're breathing up and down the central channel to just move some of these awakening and uncovering emotional energies. And a few more breaths. And when you're ready, coming back to a natural breath and just noticing anything that shifted or moved. We're going to transition to our opening mantra for Medicine Buddha, Lasange Kino. So, how Medicine Buddha, please give me. Um, or as the translation that I wrote there, I pray that you know and look upon me now. So again, for those of you who are new, this mantra, this is a mantra that I created. First and foremost, this isn't like from the tradition. I created this, but the point of this is to start calling, awakening the consciousness of the deity, which in terms of Buddhism and working with Buddhas, consciousness of the deity is really our consciousness as well. So we're awakening our own enlightened self. We're calling our inherent awakened self into the space, right? Into consciousness in the form and the guise of Medicine Buddha. So Min La Sangye Kino Soha will begin with the we'll end with elongated and we'll chant the actual mantra 3 times in between those okay? So inhaling deeply, exhaling, now inhaling to prepare for the Om La Sangye Kino So Om La Sangye Kino So Om La Sangye Kino So Om. So again, just noticing any shifts, anything that's changed. And as we move deeper into the practice, remembering the grounding of the seat, surrendering to the seat, allowing the seat to hold you. Remembering your capacity to always take a break, right? To always, come in and out of practice when it feels appropriate for you. So in the space around you, shifting our attention to the space around us, I invite you to imagine or to feel the presence of all the beings who love you, all the beings who want you to be free and safe and resourced. So all the deities, the spirits, the ancestors, all of our beloveds, both living and dead, the spirits and the protectors of the land, right, that wants us to be free, the spirits and protectors of the elements, all the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the Dharma protectors. Imagine that these beings are awakening around us, right? But as I often believe, these beings are always with us, right? So we're just acknowledging what's already happening. We imagine that they begin to radiate the energy of care into the space around us. We can experience this energy in whatever way feels appropriate for us. But maybe you can actually feel the energy of care, or you can imagine it as light, as a warm, soft white light that's being radiated around you. Or you can just feel the love, the care, just awakening in within you. There's no wrong way to do this or to experience this, really. And we're beginning to absorb this energy of care. We feel this absorption into our skin and our muscle and tissue and bones and other organs, becoming deeply saturated by this energy of care. We're being filled up with this care, this energy, as if our bodies are thirsty and because of this intense thirst, our bodies are drinking deeply, heavily from this offering of care from our benefactors. So allow your body to drink and allowing the mind to follow the body into this deep saturation of care. And as our bodies and our minds are drinking deeply from this care, I invite you to imagine that this energy of care begins to be somewhat concentrated right within the heart center and the heart chakra, which is the upper chest here. This energy is really just kind of collecting right within the heart center, the heart chakra. And slowly we begin to imagine that within the heart center, within the depths of this concentration of care, a closed green lotus begins to appear. A closed green lotus. If you want to, when we're working with this kind of like blooming practice, which is what we're going to do, we're going to bloom the lotus eventually. But you can accompany that with the hand gesture or the mudra of the closed lotus, which is just bringing the tips of the fingers together and just bringing that up right into the heart center. If this is just optional, right? This isn't mandatory, but this just kind of adds another layer of engagement to practice. So this closed lotus mudra, which mirrors this energetic closed lotus that's awakening in the heart center. And again, if you were beginning to feel kind of like this emergence, this awakening of a lot of emotional energy, you can return back to the breath. If you're working with the breath, moving that energy up and down the spine or the central channel. But we're kind of intentionally creating some tension in the heart center, the heart chakra particularly. And this tension with the breath, with the visualization and everything that we're doing is actually helping to kind of spark, awaken the heart chakra, right? To really get energy moving. Chakras should be these kind of epicenters where energy is moving through. But when energy isn't moving through, that means there's some emotional block, that's keeping that energy from moving. And so this tension that we're building, that we're moving through, is really kind of working to jumpstart the chakra, the heart chakra. So staying with it just a few more seconds. And then when you're ready, imagine that this lotus in the heart center begins to open. And then we accompanying that visualizing of the opening with opening our hands, of course, to symbolize the opening of the lotus in our heart center. So the lotus opens in the heart center, this green lotus. And within that green lotus, we imagine Medicine Buddha appearing and sitting within that opening lotus, right within the heart center. And you can imagine Medicine Buddha in any way that feels appropriate. You can use the image from the Google Doc, from our prayer doc. Or you can just allow whatever representation of Medicine Buddha to just organically, naturally emerge for you in your heart center. And as Medicine Buddha appears, Medicine Buddha begins to radiate this healing white light throughout the body. And in a way, this light begins to radiate out of the body as well. So even now, you're still opening and receiving the energy of care from your benefactors around you, which is still entering the body. And now on top of that, we have the radiance of Medicine Buddha from the heart center radiating outward as well. So what this is doing is creating this kind of energetic balance as we take in and drink deeply from the care being offered from our benefactors. We're also relying on Medicine Buddha to help us radiate this energy of care and healing in particular, not just throughout our bodies, but we radiate it back out into the world. So as we begin to transition into the first part of our mantra, I just want you to kind of hold and be with this kind of flow. As you're drinking and taking in energy of care, you're also, with the help of Red Medicine Buddha, radiating this energy of healing back out into the world and the space around us. So again, in the teachings of Majaya Sati Bhagavati, right, we're drinking as we're pouring, right? And just notice what that experience is as we move into our mantra work. And of course, the mantra is right in the chat box. Teata, Baconze, Maha Baconze. Irasa Sumungate Soha. Right? Like this, I pray for the end of pain and suffering and the root of pain and suffering. And I release this energy of this prayer out to all the worlds so that we all may be liberated. Right? So again, to release this energy of this prayer out to all the worlds. But also, we release the energy of this prayer out to all beings, communities, and places that are struggling to get free, right? Who are struggling against genocide and wars and famines and political instability. As we drink from our benefactors, we rely on Medicine Buddha to help us offer this energy of healing care back out to the world, to people and communities who need this support right now. And knowing at the same time we're being taken care of, right? As we're drinking, we're being cared for. And so that we have this space to freely offer back to all those who need it. Right. So we begin, and you can sit and chant with me, or you can just listen and just be with the practice and how it's showing up for you right now. O te ata begenze ma begenze rasu sumungatis oha te ana 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 begenze 백은세 마 백은세 라스 수무가르소와 제한다 백은세 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 백은세 마 백은세 raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Te anda beganze, beganze, ma beganze, raza sumunga soa. Just turning to summon our attention to our Google, down to our prayers. And again, just calling into the space. Again, all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, all benevolent beings, all protectors of the lands and the elements, our plant siblings and plant consciousness, protectors, and so forth, all benevolent ancestors, all beings of lights. We call upon you to accept these prayers on our behalf and to work on our behalf to bring about the fruition of what we're most needing to see for ourselves and for all those around us. Offering prayers for Patrick and his healing, offering prayers for my students to heal and grow, prayer for me to find rest and happiness in my life. Offering prayers for Kashala, for grace, peace, and abundant love and support for our sudden passing in the avalanche last week. May your loved ones receive all the protection and blessings they need to guide them through this tragic transition. Offering prayers for all the children in Gaza and all over the planet who are suffering. Prayers for my baby growing in me to be healthy. Offering prayers for Kaj, struggling with alcohol, relapse, and despair. For Kara and for Siggy, age 11 and 8. May they know they are cherished. Offering prayers that I be able to afford my top surgery later this month. Prayers for free Palestine. Prayers for the son's safety. Offering prayers for my grandson Oliver, who is on the spectrum and very depressed. May he find peace of mind and learn how to navigate his intense emotions. For the well-being also of my family and those in Palestine. Offering prayers that I may be able to pause more and ground myself, even in the midst of migraines. Big prayers for peace in Palestine and Israel. Offering prayers for me because I have not been feeling well and want to be so I can do all I'm called to do towards freedom. Offering prayers of protection from all the haters as well. Please, prayers for my aging body and my ability to heal and for gentle beauty. May all beings that are unwell be healed. May all beings getting older remember their value. May all beings that feel gross remember to be gentle with themselves and that they are beautiful too. May all beings be protected from hate. May we all be free. Ashe. As I begin teaching, may I be guided by the Dharma. Offering prayers for Elle, who's going through multiple tough breakups. Prayers for Penny, who's preparing to leave her body. Prayers for my upcoming bone marrow biopsy. And offering prayers for me as I heal and strengthen from surgery. Prayers for anyone who is grieving, healing, or who needs prayers. Prayers for people in Palestine, Yemen, Congo, Sudan, and everywhere there is genocide, violence, and colonization. Offering prayers for M, who is depressed and healing from trauma. May all beings have what they need. Offering prayers that my physical symptoms ease. Prayers for L and P, may they feel my caring and appreciation. Offering prayers that my partner gets a job soon. Offering prayers for my children that they feel loved and safe. Offering prayers for my beloved wife that her anxiety and sleep medications continue to work. Prayers for my beloved children as they navigate anxiety, depression, and childhood, young adult. And prayers for my beloved brother who struggles with depression and for his wife who will see the end of this lifetime this year. Offering prayers for the mother of a dear friend as she goes through the slow process of recovering from stroke. Prayers for another dear friend as she anticipates the arrival of her baby. Offering prayer supports for my guides and clarity about family, connection with all of my life, and joyful values aligned work. And may I surrender. Offering prayers for my co-workers and workplaces, we continue union contract negotiations. Offering prayers for Nada, who is heavily traumatized from abuse from some close, as well as from genocide of her family and friends who are fighting in Gaza. Prayers to all those who know very well what is happening and yet still choose silence. May they break it rather soon. We're offering prayers for myself as my grief and healing continues. Prayers that I may be guided towards my greatest contribution and fulfillment. Offering prayers for Baker and Gina. Prayers for guidance about where I most need to focus on at this time and from here on. Offering prayers to release and heal anxiety. Prayers for help making real change towards freedom. Offering prayers for my work that I may feel grounded, focused, and resourced. Offering prayers for my partner, they may find work that fills them with joy and abundance. Offering prayers for Rashid, who is in a mental and spiritual crisis. Prayers that his family brings together support that will help him in his phase of his growth. Prayers that I may have wisdom in discerning my role to help transform his suffering, connect to his Ori, and help him find his way to a new phase. Offering prayers for Donald, who is mourning his wife's passing, that he may be gentle with himself in his pain, for his children who are missing their mother, for their family to move through grief and broken hearts, and that they may be supported. Offering prayers for my teenage son as he struggles with mental health challenges, and prayers for myself that I have what I need to care for myself while supporting him. Offering prayers for M, who is diagnosed with breast cancer. Offering prayers for Palestine, prayers for all who have been sexually assaulted in the Congo and Sudan. Offering prayers for myself and my nephew as we find grounding and move forward in times of stress and uncertainty. Offering prayers for AD and BD and family, especially tomorrow. Offering prayers for my sister, her wife, and their dog Breezy, who was attacked today by another dog. May she heal and be supported by our love. Offering prayers of liberation for those who passed away this week and their families. Offering prayers to dissolve my shame and be free from it finally. Offering prayers for my son as he navigates changes of puberty and navigates being a Black boy in educational and suburban systems. Offering prayers that my child's spirit be protected and preserved as she grows, that we find spaces and people to love her and allow her to be celebrated as she is. Offering prayers for Sharina and Chase that they may be strengthened and supported as they recover from leading ritual. May they have good rest and fun. May they receive back the beauty and blessings that they shared. Offering prayers for Janie as she navigates illness and aloneness and cognitive challenges. Offering prayers for Janet as she deals with her illness and her desire to parent her great niece and nephews. Offering prayers for myself and N as we grieve our parents, heal our trauma, and rebuild ourselves. Offering prayers for myself as I live and practice and live. Offering prayers for Brian that the reality of his father's transition may be revealed, that his family may contact their compassionate hearts to include him in the rituals of grief and celebration of his father's continuation. Prayers that I may flow deeply with my Buddha nature as I prepare to cohabitate with my partner, that I may continue to touch the infinite divinity in myself so I can continue to view my partner and all beings through this view of indefinite divinity. Offering prayers that my identity stabilizes so I can remember who I am. Offering prayers for my son, daughter, and her family. May they be safe, guided, and feel loved and hopeful as they go forward in life. Prayers for myself for healing in every way, from knee surgery and all the disturbances in the physical and emotional and spiritual body. Offering prayers for Ivan Cantu, who was likely innocent but who was executed by Greg Abbott in the state of Texas, who refused a stay of execution to review all the new evidence. Offering prayers for everyone in Gaza and for the world bearing witness to the atrocities of genocide. Offering prayers for the people in this country and everywhere that think the solution to their own self-hatred is to hate others. Offering prayers that we all know and feel that we are loved and simply our basic goodness. Offering prayers for all who feel is pushing them. Offering prayers for all who feel life is pushing them to the edge of what they know and what is safe. I pray our faith in ourselves and our Creator grows, that we remember we are held in love and that we are shown how resilient we truly are. Offering prayers that I may practice with gentleness and practice filling my cup, that I may have more to offer to my mother and community from a place of grounded presence. Offering prayers for my mother that she may have peace. Offering prayers for my friend Lolita as she awakens to her grief and her deepest heart's desire. Offering prayers that my anger and pain alchemize into healing for myself and others. And I offer prayers for my uncle Daniel, who will be transitioning later this week. I'm praying that he's met in his transition by the ancestors and by the support of our family. And I continue to pray for Daniel for protection and for guidance as well, and for particularly protection from the pain of others that is being weaponized against him. We continue to pray for the liberation of all beings from all systems of harm and violence. We continue to pray for all people struggling for survival and to be free. We continue to pray for the complete abolition of all systems of violence, that we all may be free and have access to the resources that we need to be well, happy, and safe, that we have access to the communities that love us, and that we all remember our innate Buddha nature, and that we all may eventually enter back into Buddhahood together as quickly as possible. And we lift these prayers to our benefactors, and we pray that they help to fulfill what we most need to see for ourselves, for our beloveds, and for our communities. So returning back to the last part of our mantra, and allowing the energy of Medicine Buddha to flow from our heart centers, out of our bodies, and just to overwhelmingly flow into the world, into the prayers that have been offered, into the lives and the struggles of the people who most need them right now. And continuing again. O 때야 다음 베근세 마 베근세라서 수무가 됐소아. 때야 다음 베근세 아 베근세라서 수무가 됐소아. 대하자 베근세 마 베근세라서 수무가를 소아. 대하다 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 베근세 마 베근세라서 수무가를 소아. Deyanda begenze begenze ma begenze raza sumugate soa. So, shifting your attention again back out to all the benefactors. We thank all of our benefactors for gathering and for offering their care to us. Imagine that they begin to dissolve into the energy of care that they're radiating. And we absorb all that energy back into our bodies. And imagining that the medicine Buddha in our heart center slowly begins to dissolve back into the energy of the heart chakra. Now shifting our attention back to the seat, allowing the seat to rise to hold us. Again, for a few breaths, breathing up and down the central channel, the Uma breath, settling energy, releasing energy that needs to be released. And so when you're ready, just reawakening your body, just moving through some simple movements to invite our bodies back into this timeline. So we're going to just close out our session with Shantideva's prayer, which you'll see in the chat box. And we'll recite this 3 times together. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for all those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. All right. Thank you all so much. If there's a question or two that I can take from someone, then I'll do that. You can put a question in the chat, but if there's nothing, then no worries. Let's see. I will not be here for the next 2 Mondays. Just to remind you, I will be teaching in person. There's a question. Can you talk about working with shame? Can you talk about working with shame? Yeah, shame, basically in general, the root of shame is just really fear. And so when we talk about working with shame, you're actually talking about working with fear. And of course, the question is, what am I afraid of, right? And of course, some of these really classic understandings of shame are related to exclusion, and not getting what we need or getting the resources that we need to be well. And shame is something that's weaponized against us, to force us, to assimilate, to abide, to do whatever. I've worked a lot with shame in the past, but for me, my counter practice or my medicine for shame has been a lot of self-love practice, and also understanding that, when I experience these moments of shame, that I'm not the only one experiencing shame, and to understand how shame has been used as a weapon and to start disrupting that, through just deep self-love, and shame is so intensified also through these feelings of isolation and aloneness. Like when we start thinking, I am the only one experiencing this, and so forth, you have to cut through that I, right? So that when you experience shame, you start thinking, you know what, I'm experiencing something that countless beings are experiencing right now in this very moment. And so this experience of shame, in a way, it makes me a part of a community of countless beings right now who are going through this. And that helps you to cut through the isolation, But I tell you, ultimately, right, we have to understand how shame is just used as something that's as a form of control, right? And when you start really getting serious about your personal and collective liberation work, then shame is something that begins to be really disrupted. It doesn't disappear completely. Nothing really disappears completely. Even self-hate doesn't really completely disappear until you achieve complete enlightenment, But what we're going for is our capacity to hold space for everything that arises for us. And the space is what's taking care of us, right? As we talked about, as we often talk about when I talk about the mother and, mother practices like Matara and, and so forth. It's the space that's actually nurturing us, not the disappearance or the absence of suffering. You know, um, let's see. Um, this is one last question. Will you talk about responsibility? On the one hand, we aren't responsible for other people. But on the other hand, we are in here to be bodhisattvas. We kind of are. How do we find the balance? Well, the balance is that, like, you're not going to free people from their suffering. Like, the real truth here is that we all have to choose to end our own suffering. I mean, that sounds like fatalistic, but like, we all have to we all have to consent first to our own individual liberation. The community, the collective can't consent to my liberation on my behalf. Instead, I have to consent to my liberation, right? That's the thing about the bodhisattva. You can't get people free if they don't want to get free. Like, because if you force people to get free, then that becomes an act of violence. As I often talk about Harriet Tubman, like, she couldn't force people to leave the plantation. All she could do was invite people to join her, and whoever showed up, right? And she was like, okay, we're leaving, right? That's the hard part about the bodhisattva work. Sometimes you just have to wait till people are ready. Just like with some of us, I grew up with a lot of wisdom, in my community. I wasn't interested in that wisdom when I was young, but as my mother would often say, she would be like, you'll learn. When I just chose to ignore her when I was young, she was like, that's fine, you're going to learn, and I did, and I do learn, right? Yeah. Um, yeah, that's the hard part again about all of this. We have to wait till people are ready to get free, right? And maybe in this one lifetime, there may be people that we deeply love who just won't be ready. And that's fine, because as a bodhisattva, you vow to return over and over again, which doesn't mean you're doing it forever and ever. It means that, like, as a bodhisattva, you understand what your work is, you do your work. When your work is done, then you pass on to something else. You go hang out somewhere else in the universe. This isn't the only thing that's happening. Samsara isn't the only show that's happening in the universe. Like, there are other ways of being, other realms that you can, like, go and hang out. And, well, you can go and hang out when you actually achieve that level of realization and are no longer bound by the cycle of samsara. Once you escape samsara, you can go do wherever you want. But as a bodhisattva, you feel compelled to keep returning back. But that doesn't last forever. Like I said, there are other things happening. Samsara is just one of the million things happening. It's not the funnest thing that's happening either. You have to keep that in mind as well. So I think that's it. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your practice. Again, programs happening this week. Show up to them. If you're in Matara, keep practicing, doing whatever you feel called to do. And then, of course, we'll have a check-in I think on Thursday is when Sister Sadada is doing the check-in and practice. All right. I think that's it for me. I do have a retreat coming up in June out in Colorado, the Eco Dharma retreat. So check that out. Applications are open for that. And so if you have some time in June, come and join us. It's going to be really fun. We're going to be doing a lot of, like, climate change practice, meditations, and work with the land out in Colorado. So hopefully you can come up for that. And everything else, check my website. And I know some of you are tuning in from Berlin. I'll see you all next month in Berlin. as well as in the UK. I know some of you are joining me for our UK retreats in April as well. So lots of stuff happening, lots of stuff happening. And we have much more to announce as the year continues as well. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you, Karen, for hosting. Eric is still on retreat. He'll be back at some point. I should know when he'll be back. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember. I
Next
don't
week.
even next week. I don't even know when I'm coming and going. So like, so thank you everyone, and be well. I hope to see you in some program this week. Thank you.